Hello everyone, and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. BJ Minton is one of the earliest and most loyal followers of this channel. By now he has become a good friend of mine. We never met in person, but somehow it feels as if I know him. A little. Back in April of 2024 we decided to do a buddy read, The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. After that first one we did several others, where overall I liked the books better than BJ did. I believe I am more forgiving for any flaws a book may have. Sometimes we were literally on the same page, on the negative side of things, like with Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which we both had some trouble with. The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie and The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. On the positive side, we both loved A Song for Arbonne by Guy Gavriel Kay and The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Still, I have the impression that BJ's experience always lies a couple of points below my rating, on both the positive and less positive reads. On some books we have both read, not in a buddy read format, BJ gives higher scores than I do, like with the Kate Daniels books by Ilona Andrews. With our 1-year anniversary as buddy readers well behind us, we decided to immerse ourselves in the first book in the Licanius Trilogy by James Islington, The Shadow of What Was Lost. Just for the title alone, this book deserves praise. It counts as our 8th buddy read, and thankfully it was a good one this time. The way things usually go is that from day one, BJ takes a head start. He normally is 100 pages ahead of me in those first 1 or 2 days, but then I gradually reel him in and pass him by. BJ explained this to me. He believes writers and editors put their most effort into the first 10% of a book. That may well be true, although I find that the quality of a book usually sits in the latter parts. As a reader, the beginning to me usually is the hardest work in trying to familiarize myself with the world, the characters, the mystery and everything. So to me, the beginning of a book feels more like work, while once the story has truly taken flight, I simply have to hold out my wings and enjoy the ride. Another thing is that BJ, who normally reads about 8 books simultaneously, can easily become bored with the subject, so he needs change. Or maybe the violence is too much and I need some distance. If I were reading only one book, I would lay it down at that point and possibly not read any more for several days. With multiples going, I can usually find one that will spark my interest again. During a buddy read, BJ and I exchange our experiences after every 100 or 200 pages. This results in lengthy emails containing our findings of the book. For this video, I will share my most interesting observations as well as a couple of BJ's. I will keep it free of spoilers, so anyone can watch this video. We started on the 16th of June and right away BJ got ahead of me. Both of us agreed that Islington is a very good storyteller, although the prose is mainly functional. He is very skilled in building up a scene and closing it with a sort of melancholy-like line, like "Neither look back" or "She was alone once again." Right from the start, the story reminded me at times of The Wheel of Time and the Stormlight Archive. Just to name a few of the many Wheel of Time echoes, the essence, one of the driving forces behind the magic, compares in many ways with the One Power from the Wheel of Time. And the so-called tenets, strict rules for the gifted, people with magical abilities, which are enforced by magic, sound a lot like the oaths the Aes Sedai live by. Also, the vessels used by gifted and augurs have huge Wheel of Time vibes, where the so-called ter'angreal enhanced some ability with the One Power. Also, The Lord of the Rings came to mind several times. The scene where Weir and Davian are being watched by a so-called hunter in the inn seems to come straight out of the Fellowship of the Ring, where Frodo and his companions are staying at the Prancing Pony in Bree, and are being watched by a ranger, who later on turns out to be Strider Aragorn. Even though there are many similarities between fantasy series, each series, including this Licanius Trilogy, has its own unique approach of the world, story and characters, and each has its own tone of voice. Robert Jordan was more an artist next to being a storyteller. Islington is a storyteller pur sang, no embellishment of prose, just straightforward telling his tale. BJ, who had read The Will of the Many earlier, told me that this first book in Islington's Inheritance series is smoother. This book is choppy, as if the author just jumps around from idea to idea, hoping he doesn't leave anything out. I agree with BJ here. Somehow Islington's writing style prevents me from sitting back and enjoy the ride. He regularly throws me out of my cart, but later on he also helps me climb back in again. There are too many ideas from which he is unable to make a selection. In that respect, this book reminded me of Guy Gavriel Kay's first trilogy, The Fiona Farr Tapestry, where the reader gets overwhelmed with the multitude of ideas and world-building details. The plain good versus evil, like in the mentioned other epic fantasy series, is not that plain in The Shadow of What Was Lost. Even now, I've almost finished reading the second book, there is not a clear line as to who of the characters belong to the good guys and who, if any, are evil. Islington also makes sure the reader doesn't trust anyone or anything. Let me give you two examples. When someone is not telling the truth, Davian can see dark smoke coming out of that person's mouth, so he knows when someone is lying. Later on, it turns out that some people are able to shield themselves from this, so that their lying remains undetected for people like Davian. Later on in the story, we find that some of the characters have other identities, so you never know for sure who can be trusted or what the truth is. The second example is how Davian at the beginning of the book is saved from an attack by an older man. Later on, we are not sure if this attack or his rescue was set up, or what it actually meant, and if his savior truly is that. In BJ's words, I feel like a ping-pong ball, watching the story bounce around with good guys who are really bad guys. At the end of chapter 50, I wrote in the margin, "When are we certain that we're fighting on the side of good? If evil has deluded us into believing that their cause is for the good." That is unique in Islington's storytelling. Never assume that you know who the good guys are. Which, by the way, became evidently clear in chapter 51, the next chapter. Regarding the characters, BJ had a preference for Weir. But for me, nobody really stood out. Apart from Davian, who the story starts off with, I have no deep feelings for any of the characters. I think that is mainly because, with Islington's way of writing, the reader never really knows on which side any character stands. Their allegiance can flip at any moment, so I remained hesitant to become attached to any of the characters. For me, the fantasy tropes of the Chosen One and the University are instant hits, always. The main character, Davian, who in the beginning doesn't seem to fit anywhere, slowly but surely unravels as a very important person with special abilities. So, right from the start, I was happy to be reading my kind of fantasy with a high pickup ability of around 90%. About 1 week into our buddy read, I had passed BJ, and even though the book is not perfect, I was enjoying myself immensely. Almost all of my underlinings in pencil relate to the storytelling, so that I can easily retrace my reading steps and connect some of the multitude of dots. Islington is very good in showing and not telling, which means that we regularly are put on the wrong foot, and it may take a couple of pages to realize what is actually going on. Or, in BJ's words, I liked how the world building sneaks up on me through the storytelling instead of pages and pages of descriptions. I found that the humour was underrepresented. Not that it was boringly serious, but for me the author could have increased the banter level just a bit. I'm a sucker for rituals and symbolism, like the coin with 3 triangles punched from the middle, signifying a request from a gifted person for sanctuary. 1 triangle meant the person asking was in no danger. 2 meant they were in some danger, but not immediate. 3 meant that if sanctuary wasn't granted, the gifted was most likely going to be captured and killed. I'm also always interested in dialogues about faith. One of the characters says, "You can put your trust in something that's obvious, that's measurable or predictable, but that's not faith. Nor is believing in something that gives you no pause for doubt, no reason or desire to question. Faith is something more than that. By definition, it cannot have proof as its foundation. It strikes me that a man needs to know what he believes before he can really know who he is." That last line reminded me of Drizzt in the 3rd book, where Monolito tells him about Myliki, the goddess of the rangers. "The gods are within, I say, whether one has named his own or not. You have followed Myliki all of your life, Drizzt. You merely never had a name to put on your heart." About halfway through the book, the name Licanius is mentioned for the 2nd time only, and we still have no idea who or what it is. But somehow that doesn't really matter, because so much gripping and intriguing stuff is happening that I simply trust we will get to that eventually. Even though in the end I don't understand a lot about the hard magic system in this book, I absolutely love the explanations given by different characters along the way. A reader who is not that interested in how the magic works can skip these pages, but for me, they are the icing on the cake. I gave the 693 pages of The Shadow of What Was Lost 91 points out of 100. Both BJ and I were impressed by James Islington's gift for storytelling. The epilogue of the book was a complete surprise to me. I did not at all see the reveal about one of the characters coming. Unfortunately, there is not much of an apotheosis to speak of, which left me a bit unsatisfied. The author also left us with many more questions than answers. Nevertheless, I continued with Book 2 immediately. Apparently, the cliffhangers worked very well here. Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.